Hello America. This is a video about correlation nature. When I use the word nature after a value, such as a word, in the identity of the ground, person, place, or thing, it represents. And that means as a verb or a noun. It means as identity. The verb and the noun, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, are distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identities of the same volume /s, which only increases as value, where value is nature, and nature is value. Positive or negative to itself as a system that is perfect, and only increasing the identity of the perfect world. But exceptions in the exception nature was set up as hundreds of nations at once to keep self-valued roles with a syntax nature, fact-achievement nature, illness right back to all locations, where and how already had been sustained a breaching method set up and sustained where no one fathomed. It was sustaining bad things against everyone, individually grouped and together, to keep everyone of the entire identity of volume we are, how it works, blaming other things, others themselves, without realizing, as victims needing to react as syntax nature, fact-achievement nature, simultaneously being and having been tactically removed and sickly distinctly, differentially categorically, from that identity of sophistication as value / value progression, as that identity, not only that inventions work or not in relationship to it, as that one that can be discerned per how inventions are further positive or not in relationship to it. It could also further be discerned how we have means to attribute as fact-achievement nature, as syntax nature, a shared enemy to all modern nations at once. That can be traced in relationship to uses of premises treatments across the board of nations that are tactically, criminally foreign influenced. Sequence treatments, identity treatments. But there is no way to have science that's not abridged. There's no way to have people, in other words, they're fabricating audio and video to pretend other, and offensively, which is where and how investigators, and vetting identities are used remotely, and having been used remotely in relationship to questions like about slavery, for example. It is clear as day. And night and day are in demonstration of the concentrated value that is clear. All gather here. To earth distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the rest of space nature. As the identity of, they like the word fabric with the ancients, with now, distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously. And every science before the order of the finite, smaller than the smallest thing, as three identities of zero, but it will not mix with three identities of zero, while it is their value too. It's how it won't mix with itself, why, where, and how it is only increasing. That same identity is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the identity of infinity, while it is simultaneously in conjunction with itself as the identity that is simultaneously pushing the complete part of the complete value as nature / nature as value. That is temporary / lasting. Quality of diffusion humanity as an identity of volume, as volume science. So these are three different identities of volume that are only increasing. There are two exceptions in exception nature, where nature is value / value as nature. For example, the identity /s of sequence nature / simultaneous nature as the value of the truly what came before the order of the finite now. And see, if we use this science properly, truth properly, ground identities properly, see, identities in a value / value progression that react the way everyone does naturally, because this is a perception thing that is also sequence shifts oriented. It's maintaining people to self-valued roles with illusions posited, ones that are effectively having been used and being used to keep the identities of all locations, areas, and states needed to hide life progressions. Needed all database when that's not true, all database relationships simultaneously, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, originally still for self-valued as victims themselves. But you can't, they make that like a thing. That's, in other words, they leave out how everyone is victims of an identity, the ground method that ties identity of industries, identity of people, identity of the ground locations into reactions. We're investigators and identities of the law. We're the complete and are the complete possession with everyone else. Kept hiding, needed to hide the same sequence shift. Simultaneously, again, needed to self-value roles with, because everyone's a victim of this method /s. That clear as day. It's leaving out. I have to use another expression because this is about what is white and black are in demonstration of the clear. The identity that makes more out of nothing. This is where matter came from. Everything, we know things evolved. That's the most practical to convey, to theorize. But see, the reasons we have people doing it, they have name dropping. And then they have a nature of arguments and of premises treatments, of positive and negative treatments, of name treatments, of identity treatments, of sequence treatments. Everyone's speaking through other people. Timed, too. This is coming up. Just when they hear this, too. They have the sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase. They have things in relationship to the sense and sensibilities where Harriet Beecher Stowe used the phrase Uncle Tom, and where the Harriet Beecher Stowe house and the Mark Twain house in Hartford together there, how they are involved with the identity of the ground location and its uses, where everyone was a victim, and with sense and sensibilities that are themselves employed for a method that was doing this without anyone discerning, because it was employing defenses of premises treatments that were / are increasingly criminally foreign influenced overtly / insidiously. And all that causes and keeps and self-values kept and having been kept blamed on other things other than themselves. That's value not having been. Because where that is, there was a whole bunch of phenomena where there were real motivations for evil and for goods in criminal and seditious natures, of positive treatments, identity treatments, opinion natures, conviction natures, uses of people's names, sequence shift styles are manifest. People want to debate about their passions and emotions. They want to leave out the sequence shifts. Then they want to say, oh, well, this is good, They want to have forgiveness or whatever in relationship to conflicts that shouldn't be at all because of how they have investigations, and vetting identities, have liars that approach strangers, and then they pretend they know them, especially when they're kids. These are people intercampuses, connected vertically and horizontally. They affect confessions because they have remote uses of each age of fact-keeping nature because they have the remote uses of all identity ground locations. Further inter-database relationships simultaneously. Per the same method, that is the facilitation of the nature of the positive and negative treatments, names treatments, fact treatments, defenses of that, to all locations. That's why how we have, since before cars, forced with the fact treatment nature slavery of everyone to force the roles with the collusion with that. As the pathology of homes that were set up here in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and throughout America and the other modern countries, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. That same pathology of homes and of means to them, tactically denatured, landscape theater across the board of nations, and or overtly tactically denatured, and responses to it in collusion, self-valued. All victims where they keep everyone knowing that or blaming other things other than themselves. They keep arrays of opinion natures, conviction natures. When it comes down to it, in other words, they're fabricating audio and video still interbranch with the private lawyers tied to them. If you call it to report specific acts, they'll make conspiracies, pretend you made it. They'll say, I don't understand. They'll ask you to speak further. Like if I called up to report people attaching me to fake words, fake locations since I was a kid, fake words with my family and with others. And they've been doing this to kids through time on off campuses because they are used remotely. Overt criminal enterprises and the witness protection program people associated with a body dumping spot /S reported tied to that and confessed tied to that and verified online. They use the confessions per how the sense and sensibilities of the police forms from the Wethersfield Police, State Police, interstates are involved with people from Wethersfield, interbranch, intercities, worse than just interstates. Involved with predicate acts, names forging, switching, identity theft, fraud. It is clear as day. And clear as day and night together work to show the value of the clear, invisible but still discernible. Are these five increasingly distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously bounding and increasing identities of sequence/simultaneous nature as the fabric of correlation nature and as what is its relationship to itself. 5 ways positive at once, or we are only temporary positive where we are making more and more forever nature is making more and more diffusion as negative value nature. So forced from here, forced from Earth's difference, which is a concentrated value. 1 year is 365 days. 1 year per its system can't help but be 3 years. And that's 1,995 days. That's constantly being coupled with the value of of Earth's diffusion, with no criminal foreign influences. But per its system, us no longer with no criminal foreign influences. Us self-valued roles with complete possession over the actual integrity of a republic that our founders left us to liberate. We were being prevented, mandated law outside of courts by people that are pretending to be to be capable of legislation anyway, because of how they were backed into pseudo-sophistication. Because how they were our victim predators. And then speak about it. They speak about the behavior of others they don't even know, with investigators. And then when they want to debate that, they have to self-value that already being and having been done by people involved with all locations, through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, where we have naive reactions. So we have real healthcare and medicine and identity ground locations that are involved with where all kinds of phenomena and anomaly, where and how there's a vertical and horizontal on and off campuses of each age and nature, and interbranch simultaneously, and overt criminal enterprises, and killers and people associated with body dumping spots, and where and how investigators, and in defenses of their ways that they were told to do things. They have the perfect world as a phrase that is involved with police forms, and with overt killers and things like groups and stuff like that, and with their roles. This method knew that they would have to react to the real causes of negative value nature progression acts and natures, modern nations' legal identities, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, and wrongdoing itself. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, I'm not a criminal. It recorded how lawyers, they make theories, and they simultaneously, as sequence shifting predators, rules crimes predators, syntax fact cheating nature predators, identity thefts and frauds roles, and styles of it, arrays of opinion natures and styles, fake difference. Now, the difference is what is 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature as itself, as what is positive or negative to itself. Again, that which inventions work or not in relationship to it, that which is simultaneous, that which has inventions further positive or negative in relationship to it. Criminal insidiousness nature, we don't have to be lawyers to understand that better than them. For example, in many cases, that they would pretend other while they were standing criminal insidiousness nature, criminally legalized in relationship to such questions about slavery. Now, in reactions to that which is unacceptable, unfathomably acceptable per correlation nature, per what is simultaneous, when people try to pretend that there's integrity with America and leaving out. So they have self-value on a mass scale. All different people, sense and sensibilities reliant upon the perfect world being and having been forsaken, and all that caused and was engineered to cause, with having been blamed on other things, others, and selves, and no one fathomed how that would be and is exploited. So they pretend that they legitimately go back and forth about people's behavior in courts, and about people's about their questions about people's integrity and things like that, their character. But they do so criminally, because they lying with the passions and emotions in the courts. And they haven't been doing that. More and more, they had to lie simultaneously, and had the values set up. People lying with passion, emotions, with locations involved with sequence shifts and illusions positing. That's why they walk up out of time and have people say things, because they have to pretend that they're just writing whatever into databases. And now hundreds of nations this is the outcome /S kept there and here, with all kinds of instances of all kinds of things that are methodically maintained, specifically to maintain the sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase, to maintain a nervous system for the devil, as it, but not fathoming, and only fathoming as style of counter-predator, therefore increasingly incapable of defending its logic and not self-valuing the guy's logic of where they have mental health, recorded and involved with courts and with police forms, fabricating audio and video into databases. It rolls with uses of the phenomenon where a predicate acts delivery system method has locations where we need to value increasingly, and most importantly, like medical locations. See, they knew syntax-wise we would have to, and they built everyone with these mixed identities. You know, we have pseudo-medicine. We have criminal. We have corruption. Originally and still, where they have identities of integrity, pretended, identities of experts with the mind, with treatments of people's names and identities. So right where they have places where they have to keep calm and peace, and they have, you know, strong people with weapons, crazy people that go in there. And they had to find ways. They knew that they would have to find ways. Simultaneously, everyone had ways. We all kind of need live progressions to all locations in the first place. Where they are fact-cheap in nature. The mind, science, it's not just by having a doctor. Even if you're all together, still lie. Non-integrity of mental health and of psychiatry and of systems and of their roles with that is what is recorded to correlation when they bring up and just being and having been and having never been told about, like Jim Crow laws properly, slavery properly. What caused that? It was forced roles with a predicate acts delivery system method, a human fact-cheap in nature breaching method. Now, see, why is that important? Because people are starting fights where and how we have black, white, all different that are playing the game of that. They're making that mean what it doesn't. And they're taking away its meaning more and more, its real meaning. Temporary differences and demonstration of this that is temporary / lasting at the same time here. It is the tool of correlation's nature's invisible but still discernible fabric. That which will not only it won't mix with three identities of zero. It won't mix with letters A through Z, but the value of them simultaneously is the phenomenon of where and how it can only make more of itself. Because how won't mix, but can't help it. Right where and how we are a diffusion, a delayed diffusion. We are temporary of itself. Where it's trying, but the solutions, evolution's fruits and gifts, they come by if we understand this and use this science of that volume. Forget fabric, it's physics. Of this volume science. and this identity of relativity science, not theory. See, they put theory because of the sequence shift roles. Self-valued, where and how each age of fact-keeping nature is not only simultaneously a victim of what they didn't fathom, but not fathoming how self-valuing roles. And all that, with all that too, where we are prevented uses of what is true always, not denying it's the identity of truth. When you say slavery was caused by a predicate acts delivery system method, it was that which was involved with it. When you use knowledge of the most knowledge of that stuff, of history, and you leave stuff out like that and pretend to be integrity anyway, people are making opinions against others in contexts where there's perception. Everyone missed what came before that. Everyone missed how that's involved with people with identity thefts, frauds, acting timed right when people are going to do big world, small world. This is complete possession of each identity of any of correlation nature, of integrity, and needing to pretend others simultaneously. So we need to have mandated law followed outside of courts. So they can't afford that because there are too many natures of organized crime that are victims as people of the law. Our heroes. They need our heroes to stay. Criminally foreign influenced. Delusions wrought. Predators. Rules, crimes, predators at the same time. Identity thefts, frauds, roles, self-valued roles of everyone else with that. Each age of fact-keeping nature. Each instance put into a database and with people's narratives. And the way they do it, they do not do it the way they say it. And then who tells them, who figures that out? They have all identities of integrity fake. With each age of fact-keeping nature, each identity of location, this is because of how we have foreign and domestic mixed. Here and there, this keeps the sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase. This keeps the human fact-keeping nature as a criminal and citizen's nature, self-value. This having been criminally legalized, this having been overtly sickly way lower than American standards. This having been using words like /values like jobs, leaving out how those were employed, how the premises treatments involved with that, including the victim industries themselves. Because of the bodies they represent. But see, that simultaneously, this is not simple like that because it's from off locations. So it keeps those bodies themselves. Worse than just gangs, everyone. All locations, areas, and states are tactically, criminally foreign influenced. It is what is the value of what is standing as people stacking in New York City and as responses to it, as opinion natures and conviction natures, as the delusions wrought across the board of nations, white, black, pink, purple. That's what they say. White, black people. Because everyone leaves out simultaneously, though. They say the same things, but they leave out how that is an employed reaction, a forced reaction, tricked, hurt, persuaded reaction. If we're in a boxing fight, we're letting the punches of the jabs, punches dictate what we do. And so we're going to keep losing. We have to get off first, faster, harder. But we're not fighting each other anymore. So we need to have An archetypal criminal enterprise defined by our syntax nature. And we have to see we can't do that. We can't accept what is, in other words, just we could find the metal for the steel and things like that, and I'll send it in. So we have to do simultaneously, like the microchips do for a computer, like the CPU, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, like the CPU does for the computer. They're all trying to make simultaneously being what can be done as much as possible by all having all the parts do the different things for the same thing, or what is purported to be the same thing. Boxing, the perfect world exists, but it no longer leads. Lethavadis, so all recedes. What's native pure, what's nature pure, is native pure. So the ancients understood that there is one identity of invisible but still discernible, simultaneous nature, identity of volume, identity of relativity, to itself, to us, and to and as the value of us distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously in demonstration of it. And as it. One identity of volume that is inseparable from and as all others. That volume which increased and has matter distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously in the furtherance of the value/value progression perfect of its simultaneous value transfer, where and how are pushed the complete volume as value of part of itself, as space, into existence. And the increased value of existence, it put into itself and into space again simultaneously. So space never lost complete possession by its overriding complete possession of space and existence distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, where and how it is a quality of diffusion as a trinity. And then from inside this, what can't be this complete, perfect already? The only way it could be is a simultaneous. From inside it is making more. So in other words, what looks like five, what is discernible per science is five distinctly bound identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. And that's how they are Trinity. And they are bound by one identity of volume simultaneously. We are 1/3/5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. And only exception, we'll examine this, only exception to that is how we are 1/3/5/7. I'll dream of heaven. So no, the reason there are in 3 years, this sounds crazy, but listen, the reason in 3 years there are 1,995 days, and this is constantly being coupled by the value of our 1/3/5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. So the value as where it is value, and this is where it is value as nature/nature as value simultaneously. In that one sequence, value as nature, simultaneously in the sequence, nature as value. and with the slash between that, where and how we are this quality of diffusion. We are automatically temporary positive. More and more temporary positive or negative is being made, but per its system. So this does not leave out. See, because this is the substance, more than just the fabric of the substance of what it won't mix ever, never did, and never could mix with the finite. Its complete nature all at once. The way the finite is a complete, only increasing identity of value, though. Distinct, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as itself. The cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall, they are distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously themselves as the cell. And the cell bodies connect with other cell walls. This is the body of value discernment. As this identity of volume, as volume science, not using theory. Using also how it is when these 5 identities of sequence nature are not valued honestly and simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, when they are valued dishonestly, pretending to be positive when they're not, that causes nature itself to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, the opposite of evolution's fruits and gifts. It means from nowhere. And where and how we are quality as fact achievement nature, humanity. See, the ancients couldn't fathom what an archetypal criminal enterprise probably found need to fathom, because they would have got caught as a regular criminal enterprise. But what they did was trick, hurt, persuade, force the phenomenon of ancient countries, individually grouped and together, to be hurt, to react to that, and then to defend the reactions, simultaneously not fathoming that and how they were being tricked, to defend roles with tactically abridged sciences, abridged from where and how they were revealed by that identity of perfection that revealed / reveals. For example, also, how each letter of the English language spells out a word, and how each word spells out a sentence, and how exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of this. But you have to, by understanding correlation nature and how there is that one identity of volume, 2 identities of volume that won't mix, even with the finite, but how they're still the same identity of volume. Its possession of itself never leaves. So we could discern where and how the finite is being and having been forsaken, when experts on the law pretend to be of integrity, since we are kids. What we never been able to counter this. The devil knew, the method knew, that the method /S, where everyone else is self-value, rolls with what its causes, negative value in each person, its causes, and our roles for needs for causes of investigations themselves. Investigators themselves, right back to identity ground locations, not by accident. Overtly, they if you listen, the branches of government, the schools, the private industries, and everyone, and all the opinion natures that we're allowed to hear, they confess, record, demonstrate roles with overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises. While say how where they self-value, where they are naive, fact-achieving nature responses, again, to instances and simultaneously, this is where they're lying about what is recorded over phones. They're leaving out what are people trying to report simple things. They're acting with fake passions and emotion while they're faking fabricated audio and video. They already did this through administrations. They forced self-value. You see, when they say, oh, the Latino vote, the white suburban vote, a breaching method put this to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. And they put what would cause them even faster. And they back people into it. They set the homes up to be converted to 2 families, 3 families, where they built Hartford as a suburban / urban, and Wethersfield and the neighboring suburbs, urban, suburban. West Hartford, urban, suburb / suburban, more suburban. They have this tied to our fact-cheating nature. That was all having been employed, where everyone was a forced fact-cheating nature slave, and rolls with that against other people. Everyone was forced to roles. So they bring up, this is part of the nervous system, where they have the people trying to counter things employed by the things that caused it. Everyone in collusion with that. Everyone going by, oh, this is good, this person's bad. And even when they're right or seem to be right, they're leaving out the sequence shifts, things that come first. It is recorded how they make good people, great people, do evil things because they get scared. Where and how the sense and sensibilities of the police forms, of the courts, leaders, associated with the FBI directors, CIA directors, military. Then they need to hide live progressions per their roles with, for example, probate courts especially, but all the natures of courts. Probate courts especially per their roles with this method / S that is with all locations, since before our founders were even born. This had sustained a method against Native Americans that made them not even remember their history. And so before they could speak about legislation, they have to be capable of handling mandated law told out here. And they're preventing us from using other people's names they brought into this conversation through time too. Like Chet Casper. I never had a class with Chet Casper. I never had anything to do with Chet Casper. He's also one of the people with downtown Hartford locations on off Fox Connecticut News and buildings next to them involved with predicate acts. And they confessed him involved with it too. And I never, and through time. Now these are people since before the World Trade Center attack, intercities every year, every season they keep stacking more predicate acts, more names to names roles with the branches of government individually grouped and together. How roles with methods like forging names and switching names, while simultaneously fabricating and valuing more and more, having been fabricated fake audio and video into databases, attaching people to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. This is also, again, where complete possession of investigations and of investigators is where they have to hide life progressions, conveniently having means to, and needs to used to exploit exceptions, then needing to hide that. We have all kinds of natures of evidence racketeering natures, delusions wrought natures that are only allowed to speak for the law. Leading up to the World Trade Center attack and in it, their roles were through other natures of motivations and self-valued roles with connections between campuses of each age and nature, intercities, in relationship to what is worse than just interstates, and having been interstates and intercolonies. That breaching method that wrought slavery sickly distinctly in the North and the South rolls with it. That wasn't for money. When the people want to pretend to themselves, with those, there was exceptions and exception nature about that. The complete possession of the nature is the subject. The predicate acts delivery system method is the subject. The Native American resistance is the subject. Their loss of memory of sciences that were originally having been revealed before criminally foreign influenced identity of the ground locations took over their concentrated identity of the ground locations, relationships to and their function as a relationship to all other locations. Just like Earth is a concentrated value, you think all existence is going to be less value because we're sick? These are not our means. One way redeems. So, in other words, you have to be working with nature and science, without passions and emotions fake. Then they want to fight everyone. All styles have erased all the people that ever speak. They want to fight. Well, how do you know I'm lying about my passions and emotions? Follow mandated law right now, and we'll see change. Pick one name and sequence for Connecticut interbranch, intercities. Let's go. Because you're going to see simultaneous. Excuse me. That's why you need to understand how there is so much simultaneously juxtaposed and having been juxtaposed. Because of how they keep the styles of victims, where they have hundreds of nations at once, all identities, laws, victim predators, though. To discern that, we have to discern and to study the breaching method. We have to show how they're predators, in other words. And that is recorded. It is how their life progression. Their roles with people that set up fake audio and video into databases, fake ties to people. They're including in campuses. We have to ferret out. This is not just elections racketeering. Those identity of the ground locations were already all having been used in relationship to where the sense and sensibilities of types of experts are forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded by hierarchies, by real reasons to do things that they're not supposed to do. Now this is where we come to where and how they have naive reactions in relationship to that sickness that blames on other things, others themselves. What is clear as day. It's not just the people stacking in New York City. It's not just the fake positive care and communicating about it, but not communicating about it simultaneously pretending about free speech, etc. Pretending to be about the Constitution with integrity as victims that came through this child abuse method. That is worse than that as an identity theft fraud method / fraud method. And what is worse than that is uses of it. And see, that's uses of where they are different identities possessed by the same overt criminal enterprise, archetypal criminal enterprise method, same breaching method, if you will. Originally still. So in other words, see, but the identities of the sciences aren't allowed to speak about the law. And they aren't allowed to speak about the truth using correlation natures, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. And with the value of sequence truth since before the word of the finite, for example, which enables us to be able to discern and to discern invisible but still discernible, where the finite is being or having been exploited, and are having been valued exploited, which teaches about identity, which is our subject also, where and how the ground is, Earth's, and its roles with what causes positive or negative, value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures here, distinctly from, non-distinctly and simultaneously, from while as the rest of space / existence. So, Allah's name and the Trinity were used to teach this. But Allah's name and the Trinity are discernible. This is about the invisible. You have to pick one name and believe in a faith per their message. But they didn't take the message sequence true with the beginning of the Old Testament, with the beginning of the Quran. The beginning of the Old Testament, we're supposed to write about this identity that came from before matter. And we're supposed to explain why you only have to understand right up to that point in the beginning of the Old Testament, before we go into Adam and Eve and the generation of Adam and Eve. And this is identity's simultaneous relationship to positive and negative. See, this knew that the people that would preserve all identity ground locations, including the religions, they would be defenses. They would be self-valued roles with criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments, and of conviction natures, premises treatments, identity treatments, names treatments. They would stay in collusion, pretending other though, as everyone does, because everyone was made to blame other things other than themselves, and locked into self-value roles with that, instead of having had integrity, real, allowed to speak for and through all the natures of organized crime that are bound with each age of upon each age of fact treating nature unjustly, while pretending to be justice, including the overt criminal enterprises. They pretend passions and emotions and illusions and sequence shifts and finite, active, and progressive lies. They have identity thefts and frauds roles with the same courts, prisons, and police forms that put them away. Same identities of law, same roles with the same styles of liars, styles of, so there's a Trantolo and Trantolo, in other words. They make up conspiracy theories. Someone should tell them, WFSB attached me and others to fake words, fake locations, fake sequence relationships. And they pretended for other reasons simultaneously, which is also evidence, which is also, they're exploiting the syntax phenomenon where everyone's playing stupid. And so they're preventing my voice by attaching me to fake words. They also have this through time, they've been doing this. WFSB has been intercities, involved with investigators, also on off their locations their location in Rocky Hill, and their role on off schools that are further involved with predicate acts, with federal criminals since before they got caught for various natures of crimes. Some of them are associated with and as co-defendants, a former director of the FBI in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. The same one and people tied to them are involved with predicate acts leading up to that and in that case and since, in other cases also, and leading up to the World Trade Center attack in a case, and in post-dated documents presented to the Ninth Circuit Court post dated from inside the court to appear as if they'd been handed in late. That was proven. That's what led to the 2006 part of a case/S. That was ongoing at the time of my father's death, too. And those are people also recorded, confessed, and demonstrating being and having been involved with predicate acts on my street then, and as those people further involved with the wire crimes over the past 4 months and before that. So since before the pandemic, there were people with the medical locations and courts and their family members and police forms and their family members involved with predicate acts, also with roles with identity ground locations tied to that, such as Church Street and a house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street, which is right around the corner on Main Street there where George Washington had to meet with the French general to gain help to win the first, part of revolution, where they had to win a war against England to force England to collusion. It was partially collusion because all the nations were simultaneously their complete identities as fact, human nature, syntax nature that had to be used by all locations, areas, states. That was the complete possession, individually grouped in together, of an archetypal criminal enterprise, a method/S that works the same way computers have to work. See, but we have this obfuscated by the identities of the experts. This works the same way logic has to work. We have, exception nature also having been set up, exploited, because of how they maintain this self-value. In other words, they know each person of each location wants to have positive. In other words, you want to meet girls. If you're a guy, these people are their uses of identity, the ground locations before you walk there. They have people that are involved with pretending passions and emotions and sequence shifts, tied illusions, and finite, active, and progressive lies with locations that are also involved with and as people with interbranch locations, a whole bunch of nations too. So when we talk about this, we have to talk about them first, because we don't have all their names. But so there are Russian families recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Hartford Hospital, with judges and prosecutors that are personally criminally involved with the Leahy family, that pretended conversations with me and about legal cases, also with WFSB and with uses of their kids for identity thefts and frauds rolls through time. They attach other kids to fake locations, and they do all kinds of insidious tricks where they know where people are going to walk. They make an instance that's unusual. They're going to walk from another direction. They're going to have someone say something to them, stuff like that. This identity theft fraud, where they confess, record, demonstrate, and insidiously hide and have to hide values that they hated in the past more and more. Their roles with predicate acts, overtly. In other words, juxtaposed natures of organized crime, specifically, for example, to maintain uses of methods recorded that the Wethersfield police use, where they forge names, switch names, and separate subjects, while simultaneously fabricating audio and video, and saying, "Well, I don't know about that, so focus on this." And then they're lying about every subject. They're fabricating people into fake quotations. Now these are courts grouped with them, and then they do their roles with the self-valued and exploited, fabricating audio and video with the executive branch and with the judicial branch grouped also with the houses and routes and roads in locations next to the state judicial branch offices. They're also associated with a Fianza family and people associated with the Witness Protection Program through a Dillon family, and we're involved with Marines. And his I don't know his